Krishna, Krishna,
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. I'll go ahead and get started with the reading. Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Good morning, and we'll continue reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Let's see.
Record, Mataji?
Yeah. So, okay. Prabhupada is speaking on behalf of the Supreme Consciousness, and he offers his day-to-day activities as an example of dovetailing with the Supreme. I'm here always working at something, reading or writing, 24 hours. Simply when I feel hungry, I take some food. And simply when I feel sleepy, I go to bed. Otherwise, I don't feel fatigued. You can ask Mr. David whether I'm not doing this. Of course, the Swami's daily routine doesn't require certification from David Allen, and any of his regular visitors can see that he is transcendental. His personal life is a perfect example of dovetailing with the Supreme Consciousness. Prabhupada has always kept himself dovetailed with the Supreme. He had been perfectly dovetailed in Vrindavan also and had no personal need or motive to come to America and live on the Bowery. It was for others' sake that he came to the Bowery, and is for others' benefit that he is speaking tonight. His spiritual master and Lord Krishna want the conditioned souls to come out of their illusion before it is too late. Speaking vigorously, even until he becomes physically exhausted, sometimes shouting, sometimes pleading, sometimes laughing, he gives his audience as much as he feels they can take. As the emissary of Krishna and the disciplic succession, he can boldly shout that everyone should dovetail with the Supreme. He can speak as strongly as he likes for as long as they are willing to listen. He is a sadhu. The Sanskrit word means saint, and one who cuts. And he repeats the same message for that thousands of years sadhu of the original Vedic culture have spoken. He is reviving the eternal spirit of the Vedic wisdom to cut the knots of ignorance and illusion. So everything is illusion. From the beginning of our birth, and that illusion is so strong that it is very difficult to get out of the whole thing is illusion. Birth is illusion, the body is illusion, the bodily relationship and country are illusion. The father is illusion, the mother is illusion, the wife is illusion, the children are illusion, everything is illusion. And we are contacting that illusion, thinking that we are very learned, advanced. We are imagining so many things, but as soon as death comes, the actual fact, then we forget everything. We forget our country, we forget our relatives, we forget our wife, children, father, mother, everything is gone. My Grant, I went up to him afterward. I had the same feeling I had on other occasions when I had been to hear famous people in concert. I was always interested in going by after concerts to see musicians and singers just to meet them and see what they were like. I had a feeling after Swamiji spoke, so I went up and started talking. But the experience was different from the others in that he wasn't in a hurry. He could talk to me, whereas with others, all of you could do was get in a few words. They were always more interested in something else. But he was a person who was actually showing me some interest in me as a person, and I was so overwhelmed that I ran out of things to say very quickly. I was surprised. Our meeting broke off on the basis of my not having anything further to say. It was just the opposite of so many other experiences where some performers would be hurrying off to do something else. This time, I was the one who couldn't continue. Prabhupada liked to take walks. From his doorstep at 94 Bowery, he would see directly across the street the Fulton Hotel, a 5-story flop house. Surrounding him were other lower Manhattan lodging houses whose tenants wandered the sidewalks from early morning till dark. An occasional flock of pigeons would stir and fly from one rooftop to the next or descend to the street. Traffic was heavy. The Bowery was part of a truck route to and from Brooklyn by way of the Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges. The Bowery sloped gently downhill towards the north, and Prabhupada could see signboards, a few scraggly Manhattan trees, and the street lights and traffic signals as far as up as 4th Street. He could see Con Edison with its prominent clock tower, and if there were no clouds, the top of the Empire State Building or 34th Street. He would walk alone in the morning through the Bowery neighborhood. The month of May that year saw more frequent rains than was normal, and Prabhupada carried an umbrella. Sometimes he walked in the rain. He was not always alone. Sometimes he walked with one of his new friends and talked. Sometimes he shopped. Bitter melon, dal, hing, chickpea flour, and other specialty food common in Indian vegetable cuisine were available in Chinatown's nearby markets. On leaving the loft, he would walk south a few steps of the corner of Bowery and Hester Street. Turning right on Hester, he would immediately be in Chinatown, where the shops, markets, and even the Manhattan Savings Bank were identified by signs lettered in Chinese. Sometimes he would walk one block further south to Canal Street and with its Central Asian food market and many other street side fruit and vegetable markets. In the early morning, the sidewalks were almost deserted, but as the shops began to open for business, the streets became crowded with local workers, shopkeepers, tourists, and aimless derelicts. The winding side streets of Chinatown were lined with hundreds of small stores, and parked cars lined both sides of the street. His walks on Hester would sometimes take him into Little Italy, which overlaps Chinatown at Mulberry Street. In the neighborhood, places like Chinese pork products and the Mei Jung Mei supermarket stood alongside Uberto's Clam House and the Paglia restaurant, advertising Cappuccino La Paglia, coffee from Paglia. His walks west of Bowery into Chinatown and Little Italy were mainly for shopping, but he also noted prospective sites for a temple. Chatham Tower on Chatham Square particularly drew his attention. Sometimes he would walk in the opposite direction as far as the East River and Brooklyn Bridge. But when a friend warned him that a sniper had been firing at strollers along the river, he stopped going there. Despite the bad neighborhood where Prabhupada lived and walked, he was rarely disturbed. Often he would find several Bowery bums asleep or unconscious at his door, and he would have to step over them. Sometimes a drunk, simply out of his inability to maneuver, would bump into him, or a derelict would mutter something unintelligible or laugh at him. The more sober ones would stand and gesture courteously, ushering the Swami into or out of his door at 94 Bowery. He would pass along among them, acknowledging their good manners as they cleared his path. I'll just stop here. It's just, I think when we read this, it just feels like all of this is like unbelievable because until we read this, I'm just saying like we don't even like cannot even understand the amount of sacrifice that Prabhupada had done in order to see the ISKCON that we are seeing today. All of these, like it's unbelievable how he's living there in the Bowery Street where it was like really such a like a downtrodden area, but he's living there amongst all of them and still he exists in a whole different platform. So it's just very inspiring, and it's like the word inspiring is also not enough, I think, to explain. But I'm just happy that we are all reading this because I think this gives a really deep insight into the life of Srila Prabhupada, and that's how we are able to connect and also see. I think it also gives us a whole lot of realization and responsibility as to how we should be looking at this movement, what Srila Prabhupada has started. With that, we can continue.